Welcome to the ThunderCast, your Marshall Athletics podcast produced by the fans, for the fans, with your hosts, Russ Livingood and KD Hudnall. We're bringing you the thundering word on the thundering herd each and every week, so keep it right here. The ThunderCast is on the loose.
Welcome back. And when I say welcome back, I mean not only the fans of this show, the watchers, the viewers, the listeners, but welcome back, Mr. KD Hudnall, host of the ThunderCast. And I truly mean it, sir. Welcome back.
Well, it's good to finally settle in and try to get back to doing some of the ThunderCast episodes. Of course, by now, everybody should know that, my family and I made the relocation from Florida to Louisville, Kentucky. So we're a lot closer to herd country, but it's been a whirlwind. Life has just been an absolute whirlwind with relocating everybody, getting everybody settled in, adjusting to the new professional work-life balance that is the difference between working in Tampa and working in Louisville. It's just been a lot. So it's an ever-evolving situation, but for right now, it's just great to be back, to be able to talk herd ball again, sit down and do the pod with you, interact with our fans and fans, herd fans and ThunderCast fans. It's I got to be honest, man, it was really tough being away for a month, but right out of the gate, I got to say that Devin Miller did a fabulous job.
Yes.
Filling in for me. He did more than just fill in. He filled my shoes and then some. So I can't thank him enough for stepping up to the plate and knocking it out of the park, so to speak. I got messages just personally via text about him and the job that he did and how good he was doing. So I got to say I appreciate Devin. He's not out of the mix at all. He's going to be hopefully a recurring guest for us, a recurring contributor to the ThunderCast on his schedule. I should say, on his schedule.
Yeah.
He's got an open invite. I hope he knows that, but he did such a great job that I don't want him to feel like this is over because I'm back, because, hey, there might be weeks throughout the season that I'm unavailable, But for now, damn good to be back behind the mic and in the studio again, even though not really my studio.
Major upgrades in the bedding of the studio, a little lacking in the herd gear and memorabilia, but I got to say, man, the beds look very comfy.
Yeah, well, not at home, obviously. I'm in a hotel. I'm out of town, but we got to make it happen. The season's quickly approaching, and, we still got position groups to talk about, and we got predictions to do in a couple of weeks, and we got a game to preview in a couple of weeks. So, hey, let's make it happen.
Yeah, and we got a lot to get into this episode. I want to start off real quick by promoting thecollegehuddle.com. We are in that podcast community, and it really is a community of well over 50 different podcasts across the nation in every single conference that there is. And you can go to thecollegehuddle.com. You can find it on YouTube. They are going to have, as we go on in this season, opponents that we're going to go up against that will have a podcast very similar to ours, where we'll be able to pick their brains. They can pick ours, that sort of thing. It's great to be involved there, but shout out to thecollegehuddle.com. Let's get into this heavy episode by starting off with a word from our sponsor, and I will read that off right now. If you've been hurt in a wreck, call the law firm of Leasure Oliver PLLC. Find them at 304carwreck.com. KD, you are usually the man driving this. You're throwing it to me and everything. I'm going to have to throw it to myself here about how many that we have. But, we've been nailing it with the 5 things. And always above 5 every time that you've been gone that Devin was in, and it just got more and more absurd. One time we had 10, 11, something like that. How about this week? 7 things every herd fan needs to know this week. As always, brought to you by Ignite Link, the Tri-State's premier IT management team. Number 1, Fan of the Year contest. Did you see this on social media?
I did. I can't say that I know all the details, but I did see that you're going to have the opportunity to, I think, what is it, check in at all the games and stuff
Yep.
like that. And there's a nice little prize pack at the end of the of the season for I don't know how many. What is it? Five? It's the top 5 point
Top
total
five.
earners.
Yeah. Yeah. Let
Yeah,
me read this off here of the little graphic that they put out. Great graphic, by the way. You got a guy in an Owen Porter jersey with the Buffalo headgear on, and got to meet that guy at our tailgate in the spring game. Awesome fan already. Fans will be able to check into games through the Herd Zone mobile app. So that tells you right there, number one thing you need to do if you don't already, download that app. By checking into games, they will accumulate points throughout the year. At the end of the year, the top 5 point earners will be entered into a drawing to be the Marshall Athletics Fan of the Year. Fan of the Year will receive season-long football parking pass, framed certificate presented from Marco, custom framed football jersey, and a Marshall gear pack.
cool.
I'm telling you, that is a very good prize package.
It's a pretty cool just accolade too. I mean, how would you like to be known as like the top fan for the Herd?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a little bit of bragging rights. Of course, not in the conversation for that. I will not be in any way, shape, or form in the running because, of course, I can't even go to all the games. But I know that we have obviously some phenomenal fans, and there is no way that there's going to be like 1 or 2 people in the running
Right.
for this. You're going to have hundreds of people that are in the running for this. So it'll be interesting to see how you can accumulate points other than just checking in for games. So, but I like this kind of thing. This is the kind of thing that athletic departments nationwide, should be doing, but particularly, mid-majors or whatever the term is that you want. It's the thing that you absolutely should be doing. And I know we have things like the kids club, but you should really be coming up with programs like this or contests like this that target your students and your younger fans.
Yep.
Because that's the future of your fan base. So hopefully this particular contest sees a little success. Then they identify some ways to branch out and expand that to include some younger demographics. But I love the idea behind this already.
You check into every game and you got a shot at a season-long parking pass. I mean, that right there tells you get to every game.
Yeah.
All right. Number 2 that we have here, the next couple will be about some additions to coaching staffs. Number 2, Devontae Nesby has been added to track and field cross country.
Awesome.
Don't have a lot of news on Mr. Nesby, but from what I have loved about what they've done is they focused and had an overall director on everything, and then you've still got the long distance running, you got the sprint running and everything. So adding to this coaching staff to me is just another investment of trying to take it to the next level.
Well, also, yes, but B, it tells me that we are making a marked effort to improve each discipline, right?
Yes.
Instead of having one coach like Caleb, we know is phenomenal at distance running. Well, his skill set and what he knows about distance running, while he may be a great coach, may not translate well to other disciplines in track and field, right?
Sprinting, hurdles,
So bring in more coaches that can teach the finer points of those specific disciplines to make the Herd track and field program far more competitive in the Sun Belt. I mean, we're seeing a little bit of the inching up, right? Look, from year over year, from a couple of years ago to this year, we've seen the recruiting really notch up this past year. And the next piece to that puzzle is, of course, a larger, more specialized coaching staff to maximize the talent that you're bringing into Huntington. So anybody that's listened to the show for any amount of time knows that we're big fans of Herd track and field. We think it's one of the easiest programs to follow because anybody can understand what 100 meters is and 60-meter hurdles and a high jump. You know what that is. So if you can make this into one of your more competitive programs, I think it's one of those areas where you can captivate a larger portion of the fan base. So you might as well spend a little bit of money and try to make that program more successful, because it contributes to other programs, right? We see football players taking part in track and field, and so it benefits herd athletics kind of on a wholesale level to a degree as well. But I love this. Welcome to the herd.
Our number 3, in a very similar vein, as we have had more and more personnel that is off the field with football, they have added Jack Jacoby as the Assistant Director of Player Personnel.
Yeah, I saw that. And of course, we were quick to welcome Jack to Huntington. And I meant that. I tweeted it, and I mean it. Like, if there's anything we can do to make life easier in Huntington, then we absolutely want to do that, because that's kind of one of the reasons we're here. We're not only here for to be an outlet for fans, but I mean, we're trying to drive the bus that leads to overall herd athletic success. And if that also means making life easier for those that work in the department, then hey, that's what we want to do. But the evolution of the coaching staff, not the coaching staff, but the support staff and of this herd football program, it feels like, I don't know, man. I can't say right now that it feels like the herd is this sleeping giant, but it does feel like that we're taking incremental steps to build an infrastructure to hopefully capitalize on the landscape of college football now, if that makes sense. So that we might be able to start to see that perennial 8, 9, 10-win seasons again, instead of being stuck in this 6, 7 area. Put enough pieces in place, capitalize on the recruiting, the way it's structured now, and the portal and all that stuff, so that we can position ourselves to always be a Sun Belt contender and not just be maybe a spoiler or pretender. So, I Huff tweeted this about the picture that was floating out there the other day with our 4 herd players. They trusted the process, and from a fan perspective, that's what I'm trying to do, and that's really hard to do, because I just want to win football games, and a lot of people just want to win football games. But I'm also trying to trust that process. It's just tough. It's tough because of it's not to trust it from a Marshall standpoint, but it seems like just as soon as you start to trust what's going on, the rules of the game change, and then you have to evolve again. So I know I got off tangent a little bit there, but it feels like we're doing what we need to do to become consistently more competitive. That's where I was going with that.
Could not agree more. It's still kind of new to me, because if they had this in the past, that level of support system that we had, the support staff, it was just unknown to me.
Yeah, I'm sure they were there, probably called something different. The responsibilities were the same.
Yeah, because Coach Gale was part of that support staff for a long time. They had it in, but just the sheer number of the ones that we have, and they're not GA positions or something like that. It just seems to be that it's ran like a professional corporation now, and you've got a CEO, and then you've got a board of directors, and you've got all these different people that are there to help. And I'm here for it, man. I mean, you either evolve with the changes in college football or you get left behind. And it seems like we've tried to do every single thing that we can, especially as a mid-major, not one of these autonomous conferences that just have an unreal TV deal that just gives them infinite pocket change. We've done everything that we can. Number 4, I think this is really, really cool. I knew it was probably coming up, but 2014 conference championship team reunion is set for September 28th against Western Michigan at home.
Yeah, I was waiting on the date, because you knew it was going to happen. 10 years from, I hate to put it this way, but 10 years from the last conference championship is, okay, I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer and rain on this thing, but that's unacceptable. We can't go one in a decade. That ain't cool. But those guys, this team in particular, will continue to be the benchmark, the watermark, whatever you want to call it, that modern era herd teams are judged against, because they were so damn good at so many positions so many all-time greats that were on that team, 2 Hall of Famers that got in the 2024 class, and who knows how many Herd Hall of Famers will ultimately come off of that 2014 football roster. I mean, you can't name a position group. There is not a position group that you can name that doesn't have at least one all-time great player on it. That's how good that 2014 team was. And there are some people that think that that was our best offensive line ever, right? There are guys that out there that think, of course, Rakeem Cato's statistically the best quarterback we've ever had in a number of major categories. And even what era you come from, or even what your feelings are, you're hard pressed to find a fan that won't put Rakeem Cato at least in the top 3 all time. At the very least 4. And to me, I don't know that you can go even 4, right? The great Devin Johnson, the great Tommy Shuler, the unbelievably versatile DJ Hunter. I mean, up and down the roster. It's going to be awesome having those guys all together again, or as many of them as possible, all together again in Huntington, West Virginia, against Western Michigan on September 28th. I'm going to try like hell to try to be there, because I've gotten to know several of those guys just, in life over the years. And I'd like to be there to support them in their moment and, catch up a little bit. And wow, I can't believe it's been 10 years. I really can't. What a magical season.
Strategically, that weekend makes the most sense because that's the Hall of Fame weekend. The night before on the 27th is the Hall of Fame ceremony. The next day, you're going to have 2 prominent members of that team that has just gone into the Hall of Fame the night before. So strategically, it makes sense. You're going to have those guys there, and then you feel like you're going to have more people from that era to come and watch them be inducted. It just makes a lot of logistical sense to have it that weekend. All right, number 5. Mike Green has been named to Bruce Feldman's freak list. Now, this has been out for a while, but it's kind of expanded over the years. And I think this year Bruce did a top 100, and Mike came in somewhere in the 50s. I think 54, 58, somewhere through there. But we have long been saying Mike Green is one to watch this year. We have long pointed out his age and his athletic ability of just the power of speed. I mean, the combo of speed, of power, explosiveness, strength. I mean, just everything that he's doing in the weight room. And I've got a little bit of those stats here after you comment on this.
Yeah, first of all, making the freaks list is pretty cool. It does. I don't care that it's an expanded list, because there were so many freakish players that were left off of previous lists. It was almost criminal. I mean, Marshall has had guys in the past that should have and could have been on those lists. But, as with the nature of the beast and most of these condensed type of lists, they focus on power conference guys, right? And it's like, well, you're a freak, but you go to Marshall. Well, it's nice to know that you're at least going to pay attention to guys that absolutely are freaks and game wreckers, but just so happen to play for a mid-major. I think that's kind of a shitty thing anyway. It's like, if you can play, man. Otherwise, we wouldn't need it. If you couldn't play, then a transfer portal wouldn't exist, right? And then people wouldn't be trying to pluck our best players all the time.
Right.
So give me a break. That's an argument for another time. But Mike Green, if he puts it all together this year, I think you need to watch out. I really do. It's a guy like Mike Green that defensive coaches like Ralph Street love to come across in their careers. Because you see this unbelievably large specimen of a guy who just has all this untapped potential, and you really get to mold that and turn that into something that can be utterly game shattering. And I think Marshall fans, if Mike's able to stay healthy, are going to see that on a regular basis this year. Like, I don't want to hear nobody going, man, where did he come from? Because we've been talking about it for months.
Yeah. And we're going to be talking about him quite a bit later on in this episode as we're doing the defensive line breakdown. But this comes from the bio on this list. Number 56 on the list. I was right there in the middle of 54 to 58. The 6'3", 243-pound sophomore has generated a lot of buzz inside the program. This summer, Green ran a 4.5740, bench pressed 405 pounds, power clean 365, and squatted 525. A quote from Coach Huff says he is the real deal, and he added that Green reminds him a lot of Tide great Will Anderson, perhaps not quite as powerful, but maybe more athletic. If that doesn't tell you, hey, we should maybe pay attention to what Mike Green might do this year, I don't know what's going on.
Well, what I would like is, that's high praise, super high praise, right? Most Herd fans aren't going to identify with former Alabama players, right? You're going to have to put that in terms of Herd players for a lot of people. So the best thing that I can do is say you might see a more athletic version of a Vinny Curry, right? That's the type of level that we're potentially talking about coming off the edge. And if that doesn't get you excited, I don't think that you care too much about stellar defensive end play, because Vinny is one of the greatest to ever come off the edge for the Herd. And if you're talking about a guy that is more potentially athletic, just think of the enjoyment. Just think of the plays that you're going to see in the stands that are going to drop your jaw, that are going to make your eyes go wide open, because Vinny did that for us for a number of years. And if we see a glimpse of that from Mike this year, it's really, really going to sit the right way with a lot of Herd fans. So Will Anderson, great player, obviously, but put it in Herd terms for me, right? And I think it's a more athletic version. Granted, probably a rawer version of Vinny Curry, but the potential is there to be a more athletic version of Vinny Curry.
Well, let's help out these Herd fans that may not have heard of Will Anderson to help with this quote a little bit. Won the Bronco Nagurski Trophy twice. He was the third overall NFL pick, NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, made the Pro Bowl as a rookie. The guy's got some talent. So I don't know what more can be said about Mike Green when he's getting comparisons like that. And we've seen Coach Huff took him down to SBC media days. He and Logan, the two representatives, were bookending him, Coach Huff, in the middle on the latest roster that was shown out there. Their team photo. A lot is expected of him this year. And again, we are going to talk about him quite a bit in this breakdown that we have coming up.
Yeah.
Number 6, men's soccer preseason, Sunbelt Conference. They are the favorite to win the conference as voted on by the coaches. They received 8 of the first place votes out of 10.
Yeah, not surprising, right? Defending conference champions, reloaded, stacked, and ready to go to war again. Played, and I'm sure we're going to talk about it in a little bit, but already played their first game of the season, cut short, and they were absolutely freaking dominating. So there is really not a lot of questions, I think, surrounding how good this team is or how good they could be. It's more of the same. It's the Chris Grassi reload and dominate, right? And I'm not trying to just brush past that and be casual about it, but that's what it is. I don't think we're in danger of a huge drop off, nothing like that. Of course, the conference is a super strong soccer conference. And for the Herd to be preseason nationally 8th behind West Virginia, who was number 3, but internally more closely be considered the conference favorite with West Virginia in the conference, I think is a little bit more telling, because that's our league's coaches and things that are voting on that sort of thing. And they're more in tune probably than nationally, and I'm not trying to take anything away from the guys in Morgantown. They're a great team, but I think we're better, and I think that our conference mates agree with that, at least in the preseason.
Well, let me tell you a little bit about that, and you may know, but that preseason national ranking of the top 10 and everything simply mirrored how it ended at the end of last season. So I don't think that there was a lot of thought that went into it, because look at how much rosters are changing nowadays, not just with graduation and people going pro in soccer, but the transfer portal, and everything was just exactly the same. But in the conference, 8 out of 10 coaches said, I like Marshall.
Yeah. And you know what? No, it doesn't matter to me, because I'm just from the thought process of like, dude, I'd rather not be thought of as the top dog. I'd rather have something to prove, so to speak. It's not like there's pressure there, but whatever your feelings are about the blue and gold, it looks like it could come down to the two teams out of West Virginia to fight for the conference again. And annually, that is just the greatest thing to me, that the epicenter of college soccer, men's college soccer nationally, is in the Mountain State. That is so wild. And in a million years, 20 years ago, if you'd have told me that, I wouldn't believe you. Nobody would have probably believed you. Yet here we are. So it just makes our home slate against the Sun Belt teams and the schedule that we have to play is just massively important. So now they have to go out and prove they're number one, because at least preseason, we are the top dog in the conference.
And number 7, this is in the same vein, but the All-SBC preseason team, we had 3 representatives: Lineker Rodriguez dos Santos, Temu Okiyoshi, and Marco Silva.
Yeah, these guys are going to be on a freaking tear. I think we saw a little bit of that. Of course, I know we'll talk about it a little bit around the herd, but dude, A, not surprising. B, wouldn't have been shocked if there would have been a couple of more, but I get it, right? You have to. Other teams have great players too, so you can't just, fill the roster with herd players. But there are guys on that roster that did not get any preseason All-SBC nods that are going to make absolute noise and may find themselves on a final all-conference team at the end of the year. So, just highlighting 3 guys is great, but I feel like Marshall's probably got half a dozen players or more that could find themselves on an All-SBC team. Look, man, it's just rip-roaring and ready to go for herd men's soccer. I don't know what else you can say about it. It's just, put the ball down and let's roll, man, because we got a championship to win.
WVU led with 4 players. They also had the offensive player of the year, Marcus Caldera, was named for the Sun Belt Conference preseason awards. Marshall right there with 3. Then there was a couple teams tied with 2. But again, everything is boiling down to WVU versus Marshall, the way everyone's predicting for the preseason. Well, that is your first little glimpse back. You got to participate in our 5 things that this week. We had 2 additional. So again, thanks to Ignite Link, always bringing us that. And we are happy to have those guys in the fold, man.
Hell yeah, man. I'm looking forward to being back at the Joan here in a couple of weeks for the opener. I never hesitate to wrap my arms around Jed when I see him. At this point, I feel like, like he's an extension of our family and has been for a while.
Yeah.
I love seeing Jed. I am so appreciative of the people at Ignite Link, their entire team. And, dude, what they do for us is just so amazingly awesome. Our listeners and stuff know this, but look, here's the thing that we're not driving home enough. There are business owners in the Huntington region that are listening to our show that might be just like, they don't think about their IT support, and maybe you should treat it, make the phone call. Just make the phone call to Jed and be like, hey, here's what we got going on. Maybe they can get you set up with something you don't have. Maybe they can lower what you're paying right now and send some more money to your bottom line. Like, it's a phone call. Make the phone call to Jed, and see if Ignite Link can solve some of the problems that you're having. Maybe you're having unreliable service with your current provider. Maybe you're just having constant issues that you can't get solved. Let those guys and gals get an opportunity to get in there and go to work for you, because they go to work for us, and look what they're able to do for us in
Yeah.
an area that they are not experts in.
I say that
Right?
all the time. Jed says this isn't what we do, yet you see what he does at what a
Yeah.
level.
So the guy's an absolute rock star. I'm looking forward to seeing him in a couple of weeks. I'm so thankful that they've been a part of the ThunderCast for so long. I love that they continue to be behind us and support us and help drive us forward. So if you are a business owner, if you're in need of IT services, if you currently have IT services and you're thinking about switching it up or maybe looking at ways you can save a little money, it's a phone call. Call Ignite Link and see if they can do something for you. Because I mean, they're obviously one of the tops in the game around the region. So it helps to have the best in the biz on your side too. We can speak to that firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
But look, great 5 things to get back in the fold. Herd Athletics is in full swing. It's underway. It's a great time to be part of it. But the series of position group breakdowns has to continue. We got defensive line today, one of the positions that we are very, very high on.
Mm-hmm.
And not in typical fashion. Typically, I take the wheel and I guide us through this breakdown and have all the stats and everything. And being as the situation I'm in right now, I don't have all that. So Russ is going to take the wheel here. And, dude, let's start it. Where are we going?
We're going to start off with covering the losses from the roster from last year. And first, these players have exhausted eligibility. Sam Burton, Owen Porter, Kylan McCracken. Transfer portal out has quite a bit more names. Elijah Alston, Elijah Russell, Jaleel Rivera Harvey, Joshua Valdez Alanez, Joe Murray, Benny Tashita, and Brandon McElroy. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, plus the 10 losses from last season. Did we say we were high on this squad?
Yeah, extremely high on this squad.
And we lost those 3 from eligibility, those 7. Some big names in there. KD, what is your reaction to those names?
Well, first of all, you lose 2 all-time greats to exhaustion of eligibility. Owen Porter in the NFL right now. You don't have to talk about Owen Porter. He knows what he has meant to Herd fans, and Herd fans know what 55 meant to the defense for a number of years. And Sam Burton will fly under the radar. He will be one of the most underappreciated players, sadly, in Herd lore. But when you look at the numbers side by side with Porter, they're damn near equal. Right. But Porter was just a local kid who had the cool celebration and, he got all the shine. But really, he and Sam Burton were one of the best duos that we've had in a long time. So let's not breeze past that. I mean, Kylan McCracken was here for a year, played a great role, but he was a depth type piece and played well when needed. Surprisingly to me, is the guy, some of the guys that hit the portal. I didn't know Benny Tashita hit the portal. I didn't see that.
There's not a lot out there. He's just not on the roster. I confirmed it with the administration that he's no longer on the roster. He has not announced anything. 1, that he was in the portal. 2, where he's at. We just know that he is not on this team, and I believe when he entered the portal was after the spring. But again, no landing spot yet, and he didn't even announce that he was.
So that's intriguing, right? Because he was a player that we got in early on out of the Louisville area, and a very raw player. Didn't start playing football till later in high school. So it's interesting to see where he will end up. There were some guys that were here last year and back out this year. Not surprising, Rivera Harvey, he played a little bit for the Herd last year, made some plays. I think he transferred actually to Western Kentucky.
He went to Western Kentucky.
I don't know where everybody went, obviously, but the big one out of that is Elijah Alston.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he was going to be a huge piece for this Herd defense because he played such a big role last year. Ends up down at Miami, Big Miami. So he and Deani Hill both departed the Herd and went down to play for the U, but that's the biggest loss to me from the portal standpoint. 10 guys, though. That's a lot of guys. And you talk about there's a lot of depth. That's a lot of starters. That's a lot of production. And still, I feel like this is one of the top 1, 2, maybe 3 position groups on this entire herd team.
Mm-hmm.
It just speaks to how we hit that portal and how deep we were anyway, that we, honest to God, reloaded at defensive line.
There's another name that did not exhaust eligibility and technically transfer portaled out, but this is a brand new category, transferred in, then out. It's Will Norman from Florida, and we had a lot of high hopes for him. I think everybody did. Nationally, he was one of the bigger ranked portal transfers, and ultimately, I have not seen a landing spot for him.
Yeah, I don't get mad at that, right? Because you never had any. You don't know what you had. It might have worked out. It might not.
Sure.
So ultimately, it's a roster spot that we utilize to get a player at whatever position to make an impact for the herd. So while I hate to see that happen, I hate that this is a newly created category that we have to talk about. It just speaks to some of the decline of the fabric of college football. I don't really care because the guy was never, nothing against him personally.
He was here for spring practice.
Yeah, I just don't really care. Yeah. He was here and gone. So I wish him luck, but as a herd fan, I'm not getting caught up in that.
I'll tell you why I included it and why I think it's important, which I'm not saying you're saying that it's not.
Yeah.
We are so high on this class. I just want to highlight that we had one of the higher ranked transfers, definitely for the defensive end spot. Definitely for the defensive line spot. And he transferred back out, and we're still saying, hey, this might be one of our best defensive lines in very recent history, last 5 years, 10 years.
In the Huff era, for sure.
Yeah. And this has been a perennial stalwart position group for the defensive line for Ralph Street. I mean, since he's been here, he's had a really good group just about every year.
And, well, look, I want to take it a step further than that because Ralph Street's done a great job. But I can't think off the top of my head when defensive line was a weakness for Marshall. It's been a long time. Those Doc Holliday teams had really good defensive lines with J.C. Price and Cornell Brown when those guys were our defensive line coaches. They've been really good for a really long time.
They did, but where it hits for me, and somebody, one of the listeners or viewers can probably bring up something that I don't have in front of me right now when they're looking this up later and tell me how wrong I am. But it seems to me like right before Chuck Heater came as defensive coordinator that we were just so undersized and could not stop the run. And it was because of we were going more smaller players with speed. So a defensive lineman that was regularly a defensive end might be playing interior, bring in your outside linebackers to play defensive end, and so on and so forth. And it just seemed like we were undersized, couldn't stop the run. And then all of a sudden when Heater was here, we took a little bit different aspect to it. But definitely when Coach Huff came here, you saw the size go way up on the defensive line. Right. He hits that portal, man, and you see a big 6'4", 350-pounder, and you're like, well, there's a run stopper if I've ever seen one. And that just seems to be like it was a perennial thing at Alabama, and it's a perennial thing here under Coach Huff. When he was first hired, he said, we're going to have certain height and weight at certain positions. That's going to be what we're looking for. And I point at the defensive line every year and say, look no further than this. You can point to those guys and say, that is a defensive line.
Well, gee, many Christmas, man. If you're going to win football games with defense, you have to have a strong front line. I mean, that translates to far past sports, but if your front line isn't strong,
they're just going to get pushed around. Yeah.
What the hell? You're setting yourself up for a long afternoon every single Saturday. So it behooves you as a coach to go out and find the best talent that you can find, specifically on the defensive line. So that's obviously been a point of emphasis year in and year out. And not that any other position group takes a back seat, but you have to be strong at offensive line and defensive line.
You control the line of scrimmage. You say it all the time. You got a winning football game. Additions, let's talk these. Transfer portal in, we'll talk first. Jason Shuford, Jude Okolo, Sue Agonlaye, Jacarius Clayton, Jackson Klein, Deve Harris, J.J. Hawkins, Raquan Thompson, and Dylan Davis. Right. I didn't list schools. I didn't list height and weight. I know you always do that. We have talked about these guys. They're on the ThunderCast.online portal transfer site. But tell me about these guys coming in.
There's a lot of for what we don't like talking P5 G5 stuff. A lot of these guys are coming from those conference schools. So while we hate talking about them as it relates to us being, shit on being a mid-major, I also don't want to put too much high praise on where a guy came from just because of the school he was at. Right. But I'm not putting that credit on the name of the school, but what you have to look at is the infrastructure and the facilities that they are able and afforded to put in place because of the money that is attached to those schools and those programs. So you have and the lure, obviously the lure that while it might not be important to me to be recruited by Ole Miss, while I'm not an 18-year-old college senior that's, or a high school senior that's going into the process, and being recruited by Ole Miss might be really appealing to me. So for a certain amount, you have to give that credit to those schools. So while all of these players that come from power schools might not translate into difference making and game breaking ability for the herd, some of them will. And some of those prospects are very intriguing. Is it Clayton that came from Mississippi State we were unsure for a hot minute if he was going to be a tight end or a defensive end?
Yeah, they the last 2 years had taken this amazing talent defensive end, 6'4", 240 is what he's listed as right now, and they said, hey, this guy's very athletic, let's make him a tight end. Well, that is high praise. And that tells you what you could probably expect. And again, we're going to talk about this guy a little bit later. But if he's already really good at defensive end, I'll let the guy eat,
Right.
And I mean, let's not reinvent the wheel here. Let's see how good this guy can be.
Yeah, well, you never know what the situation is. Maybe they were really deep at defensive end and they were like, look, we've got to get this kid on the freaking field. Where can we get him on the field at? Well, and naturally he might be obviously more of a fit to come off the edge from a defensive line standpoint. So you're like, you know what? We'll put your foot back or your hand back on the ground and let you go chase the quarterback. That's what we need. That's what we want. You can, and we don't know. I don't know, right? But I'm just imagining scenarios. There will be points in time, you think, during the season where you've got Mike Green on one edge, Clayton on the other edge, two unbelievably athletic guys.
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do? How many offensive lines that we're going to face in the Sun Belt conference schedule are going to have an ample amount of talented offensive linemen to stop both of those guys on any given play?
Yeah.
You're going to have to use your back to chip one of them. Well, you're not going to be able to chip both of them with one guy, right? It's not going to happen. So these are the type of mismatches that start to get created and how you start to play chess with your defense versus opponents' offenses so that your incredibly athletic secondary might be freed up to be able to make some plays on a number one wide receiver or come down with that errant throw or whatever the case is. This is why I'm so high on this defensive line. I think Huff and Street and those guys hit that freaking portal and they found game pieces that we needed, right? We needed a couple speed rushers. We need a couple more run stoppers. We need a guy from a defensive end standpoint that might be able to drop back into coverage a little bit and hold his own. Not on every single play, but you have to have those guys. And they went in and they got guys from Mississippi State and from University of Virginia.
Two from Colorado.
Right. So there's just they went in and got pieces. And we talked about everything that we lost. I'm not going to sit here and say that we replaced every single piece tit for tat. I can't tell you that because we know what we saw last year. And a lot of these guys, we don't know what they're going to do this year. So we don't know that we adequately replace things. But when you watch film on some of these guys, you're thinking, oh, okay. When you pair them with the other guys on this roster, when you pair them with a Mike Green or a Taquez Legs or Isaiah Gibson Sr., and you're like, all right, okay, the herd might be a might be a little scary there on the defensive line. That's why I feel the way I do, you know?
Mm-hmm. So we've got here, I'm just going to go over, I'm not doing the height and weight, but just where they transferred in from. Shuford is from East Carolina. Okolo is from Florida Atlantic. Agunloye is from Virginia. Clayton from Mississippi State. Klein from American Heritage. Harris from Colorado. Hawkins from Colorado. Let's see. Raquan Thompson from UTEP. And I I can't remember if Dylan Davis, if I had him listed there or not, but from Illinois.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a lot of impactful players and some depth pieces, right? So
some big body run stoppers, you can tell when you look at them on here. And, again, not every player, this isn't a college football 25 video game.
Right.
Not every player is going to be out there for every snap. And you really want to run down an offensive line, put your big boys out there, and say, hey, push these guys around for a little while you're trying to run some clock, or if you're a heavy running team and you've got 324, 327 and bigger out there, and say, good luck pushing these guys around. Tire them out.
Yeah.
Let's talk about additions from the high school ranks. We have 3. Jackson Cunningham, Chris Stokes, and Cam Shimura.
Okay.
And here's what we got on those 3. First, Jackson Cunningham, local kid, Winfield High School, 6 foot, 246 pounds. Chris Stokes, 6'3", 286, comes from Dallas, Georgia, East Paulding High School. And then Cam Shimura, 6'3", 291, Wexford, Pennsylvania, North Allegheny High School.
Yeah, there. So some pieces, right? Obviously, you're expecting red shirts from most of these guys. I mean, you're talking about a freaking defensive line unit that is as stacked as we think it is. Incredibly hard for an incoming freshman to crack the actual lineup and get some playing time in a game. Now, of course, these guys are seeing action in practice. They're going to have to go up against our athletes on offense, all that sort of thing. But this is very much a developmental year for these guys. We all know that. So what you look at is, what do they project to be in a year or two, right? I love the fact that there's a Winfield player on here. I just love 304 guys whenever you can get them. Give BA a year or two. Give BA a year or two to get these guys where they need to be. Get Ralph Street a year or two to see what these guys can ultimately turn into. Are they going to be players for the herd, or are they going to be players for someone else, right? That's really the name of the game nowadays with freshmen. It's just so hard with the portal. It is so hard to be a true freshman and find a starting role somewhere. It happens. It does. But it's just so hard now. And I would not have wanted to be a defensive lineman in the 2024 class and have committed to the herd, because they are just so damn deep at defensive line. But it's just a project. That's all.
So we talked about bringing in some people from other conferences, and from UTEP, Raquan Thompson, 6'3", 291, is a senior. And I just mentioned Cam Chimura, incoming true freshman, 6'3", 291, true freshman. Chris Stokes, 6'3", 286. Right. So that just goes to show you what the clay that they have to work with, BA and Ralph Street. So,
and just look we all know that a senior, fifth-year senior, 6'3", 291 looks vastly different.
Totally different.
Than a freshman, 6'3", 291. Not even if you're a weight room dog, right? Even if you're just like living the gym, doesn't matter. Dude, you're 4 years older and 4 years more mature, right? Your body is just different. So the blank slate, finger quotes, blank slate that is there for these 6'3", 280, 290 guys as freshmen could be something really good as these 6'3", 290, 280, or maybe even pushing 3 bills at this point, redshirt sophomore.
Mhm.
That's where you're hoping to probably really get something useful, begin to get something useful out of these guys.
Or they pare down and they're 275, but
Or
they put on 15 pounds of muscle, so it's a 30 pound weight transformation, which I'm gonna have a little bit about here in a little bit. All right, so that is our losses and that is our additions. So why don't we talk starters? How do you want to do this? I'm going with a basic 4-man front, 2 ends and 2 interior linemen. So
that's fine.
do you want to go tit for tat, one for each?
We can try. Yeah, we can try. Because I'll tell you what, I've got 3. I don't like to rubber stamp a lot of things, especially when it comes to starters. But I feel really good about 3 of the 4. So we can try to do that.
I have a feeling where your 2 of those 3 are. So let's start with the interior lineman. And I'm sure we're going to match here. I'm going to go first. I'm going to say Tyquez Legs.
Yeah, Tyquez Legs for me as well. Just been an unbelievably impact guy for 2 years, I think, already. I think this will be his 3rd year with the herd. I think. If not, it's his 4th year with the herd. But just what an animal inside. What a freaking animal inside.
Athletic. I watched him at the fans first event last year, playing a little basketball. They had a little makeshift hoop around there. Watched him play a little soccer. They had a goal there. The man is an athlete.
Yeah.
And last year we had him at 300 pounds, talking about body composition. Have you seen what he's at on the roster this year? 282.
Wow. Look at him, slim and trim.
And I'm going to
probably a little bit more shifty, probably just as strong.
I'm going to guess that he's added some muscle as well, because, I don't think that we're just looking in this weight program to say, well, let's lose weight just for the hell of it. So if I would say he's a little stronger, a little bit faster with the dropped weight, but also added some lean muscle, if I had to guess.
Yeah, but it's not just about the playmaking ability with Tyquez. It's attitude, man.
Yeah.
That dude he does the dirty work. He's the lineman that you got to have on your team who ain't afraid to get in there and do that stuff, man. He's one of those guys that plays to the last millisecond of the whistle.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're like, ooh, it's a little borderline, but I love that. I think as a coach, you should love that, right? Because when we were talking to Hub and we were talking to him about the transfer portal, remember he said there's a line there, and I want to be just on the inside of that line, like towing where I shouldn't be, but still on the safe side.
Everything's legal, but right there.
But I want to be
there.
right at the edge,
right.
And I feel like that's what Tyquez is. He's right up to the edge of what's legal. And, of course, it ain't illegal unless you get caught. So, whatever.
So, let's go number 2, and I've penciled in Isaiah Gibson Sr.
Hands down. Big time news getting Isaiah Gibson to come back one more year and play for the herd. Just been a guy that, man, he just makes freaking plays. I mean, he just does his freaking job. I love having Gibby back. I think that is it is one of the biggest reasons that I feel as strongly as I do about the defensive line. That duo of Legs and Gibby, so good. It is so good. So having Isaiah Gibson Sr. back one more year, one more go around with the herd, huge.
We talked about Legs dropping some weight.
Yeah.
Gibson was 6'4", 312 on last year's roster. Any guess on this year?
No.
6'4", 324.
Whoa, went the other. Okay, so he took Tyquez's extra weight there.
Yeah.
And all right. Well, dude, he played phenomenally well at 312.
Yeah.
So I really have no reason to believe that he won't play just as well at 320 and a little bit of change.
And if I'm not mistaken, he came in around that weight and dropped down a little bit last year. He was one of the ones that Coach Huff said really changed the body composition, even though there wasn't a lot of weight involved, the number on the scale. It was the added muscle and things like that. So, again, I'm not sitting here thinking the guy ate Oreos all summer long like I did. I'm thinking that he's been working in that weight room and getting bigger, stronger. But, again, when you're talking about a nose tackle and a run stopper, I'm not mad at 324.
No, of course not. And the philosophy for me is I'm trying to put myself in the mindset of an Isaiah Gibson Jr., or senior, which obviously I can't freaking do accurately. But I'm like, okay, this is my final go round. If I want to make a run at that NFL career, I want to be where I want to be, where I think I play best. Maybe he thinks he plays best at 320 and a little change.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe he thinks he is more effective at that body type. And if that's what you got to do, then good. Because it's not for me. Yeah, I want to see these guys dominate for the Kelly Green, right? That's what obviously. But it also, I want to see these guys go on and chase that dream. If you got NFL dreams, then by all means, put yourself in the best position to chase that dream while you're winning games with the herd, right? And if an extra 10 pounds does that for him, then that's where I want him to be.
So let's talk our fourth guy that we may or may not agree on. And third. I'm sorry. Let's go with our third that we are going to agree on. No brainer. You've got Mike Green out on defensive end. We've already been talking about him. We both expect big things out of him. We're going to talk more about him later. I know we are.
Yeah, so just go on by.
So now we're going to go to our number 4 where we may have a discrepancy. Yeah. I have, we got 2 redshirt seniors that we agreed on the inside, and got a redshirt sophomore athletic freak on the outside. I'm going redshirt sophomore athletic freak on the other side, and I'm going with Jacarius Clayton.
Okay, I can't say you're wrong, right? I really don't know. This is the spot that I really don't know. I wish I could pick somebody, but I just don't know. And I don't think I'm going to even get an accurate idea in the opener, right? I don't think we're going to put anything on paper, on film. We're going to put anything on film, unless we were in a situation last year, like with Albany, where you're like, what the hell's going on with the herd? What the shit is happening here? Like, we're in a dogfight with Albany. Like, unless we get in a dogfight with Stony Brook, I feel like this is going to be almost like an NFL preseason game where you get your starters in, they get some game rep, they make some plays, you get out to a comfortable lead, and then those guys are out of there, and you start to see some depth players. So I don't know who that second defensive end is going to be. I really don't. I like the idea of Clayton because I like how versatile of a player he is. I like what they were selling me during the recruiting phase, and I really like the idea of coupling him with a Mike Green off the edge like we were talking about before. So that's a great pick. I just wish I had a better idea of where it might actually be if that's not it.
Well, I'm gonna err on the side of caution when I say that it's not going to be a 320 to 350 pounder. It's not going to be a 290 pounder. I don't feel like at defensive end at a mid-major here. If one of these guys 6'4", 295 and is athletic enough to be, your starting defensive end as a sophomore or a freshman or something like that, it's just going to shock me. So it kind of narrows it down, and I'm going with Clayton.
It is an excellent pick. I don't really know. It could very well be that. And if I had another week to ponder on it, I could probably land on Clayton as well. You are absolutely not wrong. I just don't personally have a feeling of I'm not leaning one way or the other.
Sure. All right. So you want to talk some other contributors?
Yeah, let's talk about some other guys.
Yeah, so here is I'm just going to run down everybody, so it'll refresh your thing here. Legs we've talked about. Chris Thomas Jr., 6'6", 327-pound redshirt junior, transferred in here from the University of Florida. Shuford we've already talked about, 6'3", 323 from East Carolina. Jude Okolo we already talked about, 6'4", 290 from Florida Atlantic. Mike Green, we've talked about. Gunyale, we've talked about, but he's 6'6", 293 redshirt sophomore. Clayton, we've talked about. Jackson Klein, 6 foot, 258-pound freshman from American Heritage. Deve Harris, 6'2", 225, is a redshirt senior from Colorado. McKaylen Warren was with us last year, 6'2", 352-pound redshirt freshman from Sandy Creek High School. J.J. Hawkins, 6'2", 249, redshirt sophomore from Colorado. Braden Ward, this is a favorite of mine, but also one that you were looking at last year when he came into the fold because he went to Riverside. 6'6", 237-pound redshirt freshman. I can tell you that guy has a nonstop motor. He's fast, and he seems to never get tired and always strives to be first in all of the drills and the things, calisthenics that they're doing. Jackson Cunningham, we talked about, but he's a 6 foot, 246-pound freshman from Winfield. Chris Stokes, 6'3", 286, East Paulding High School, we talked about. Raekwon Thompson, we talked about, 6'3", 291 from UTEP. Cam Chimura, 6'3", 291 from North Allegheny, talked about him. Jabari Ishmael, we have not talked about yet, 6'5", 259-pound redshirt junior, also a transfer from the University of Miami. Dylan Davis, 6'4", 295 from Illinois, he's a junior. And then Isaiah Gibson, we talked about, 6'4", 324, redshirt senior, and he came to us a couple of years ago by way of Kentucky.
Yeah. So, first of all, Chris Thomas, you're going to see a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
I think Jabari Ishmael, you're going to see a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Highly recruited guys in University of Florida and the University of Miami in Florida. Ishmael's dad is a strength and conditioning coach down there at Miami. Mm-hmm. Right? I remember when we did his portal in last year, and we were ripping off like the high school ratings and all that stuff, and I was like, gee, many Christmas, you know. And we were talking about him, and we were talking about like Landon Watson, mm-hmm. and we were talking about somebody else, I can't remember. And I was like, dang, look at all these. Well, this is the year that looks like it pays its dividends.
Yeah.
Right? And Chris Thomas coming in from the University of Florida, I expect quick rotation guy. I mean, maybe even the first guy off the bench when Legs and Gibby need a breather, or first one in when one of them gets dinged up and misses a little time. Like, that's how impactful I think he's going to be. So I think of all the guys you named, it's Ishmael and Thomas 1 and 2 off the bench to get in and get a little time. Mm-hmm. Transfers notwithstanding, right? Current transfers in notwithstanding, because we don't know how they're playing into the mix. But as far as guys that were here, I think those are the two that you're going to see get the most game action.
I was so close to putting Ishmael as the other edge guy on the other defensive end in place of where I had Clayton, and he very well could have that. Another thing that I was thinking of when we're talking about a 4-3 that we think that we'll be in, but what about when we go to a 5 defensive line front and you've got Legs, Thomas, and Gibson right there as your 3 interior linemen? I don't think people are going to run too well on that combo.
Yeah, it doesn't. You don't think that it would happen, right? Because it looks like, damn, this is literally like a brick wall mm-hmm. that people are going to have to move, mm-hmm. and then you're going to have to try to spotlight which of our offensive linemen do we think are most effectively going to be able to move Tyquez, Legs, and Gibby. It starts to get pretty tough, because those guys they're legit. Those guys are legit. So I don't know. I don't know how often Marshall would be in a 5 lineman front. Doesn't seem like it would be too terribly often. Could be.
No, but we've talked about perceived or not deficiencies at linebacker. We were kind of thin after we had some transfers out, and there's only, I think, 8 that we had on the roster when we did the breakdown. Mm-hmm. So, there's talk that we will be in a nickel quite a bit, and, against, a team that runs a lot, you might see a possession here or there that we have those in there. But no matter what, Chris Thomas is definitely going to see quite a bit of action unless there's some kind of injury involved.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that was the main point of that. The other thing, I'm going to circle back and bring up Landon Watson again, because I feel like that might be a guy that you would see flex down, because he was that hybrid type guy. And you might, I don't know. There's some flexibility there. Are you going to see I don't know. I'm drawing the blank on the name. I was about to say Elijah Austin, but that's not the name I'm trying to think of. But J.C. Anderson. Maybe it's J.C. Anderson, another guy you see flex down when you're trying to go, in certain fronts or something like that. But it's all to be played out. I think this defensive line as a whole is incredibly deep. And there are some pieces that we don't even fully know. You and I don't even fully know how they're going to integrate into that room. I mean, just the known guys that we do know about. I still feel off the charts confident about this unit, and that's without knowing what a lot of these other guys are bringing to the table. I tell you what, we talked about defensive line, we talked about secondary, we talked about tight end as being, really, really strong units for the Herd. Defensive line really might be that number one overall for this entire team.
It is for me, and it is for the guest that you just had when you made your return, Phil Steele. You usually start off with the rankings. Phil Steele had us as the best in the Sun Belt Conference. I had planned on talking about that, but where I usually don't lead this segment, I didn't have that on the top of my head. Phil Steele is very high on this unit, and I think that that says a lot, because he based their entire finish in the Sun Belt Conference, second overall, or at least tied for second in the East, based it on the defensive line.
Yeah. And in talking to Phil, some of this made it onto the episode, some of it did not, right? Because it just happened to come up during casual conversation that was not a part of the recording. But, there at some point in the show we were talking about where does it come down? What does it come down to for Marshall? And he kind of pointed to that Appalachian State game for Marshall. Like that could be the one that decides it, right? And you look at how Marshall might match up with that App offense. That defensive line is going to have a stellar game in order for Marshall to be competitive in that one, right? And hope to win that game. That goes without saying. Your defensive line can't have a terrible game against App State and you expect to win that game. You might win the game because, hell, they might have 10 turnovers. But you can't expect them as a defensive line to play a ho-hum C- game and you to be on the positive side of that one at the end of the day. So Phil had some high praise for the Herd. He did. And as a matter of fact, anybody that listened to that interview, he threw out potential Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year, Mike Green.
Yep.
And I mean, Dan, that kind of blew me back in my chair a little bit, because we thought Mike was going to be good, but we don't know what everybody else is bringing to the table as well as Phil does. Right?
And when you're in a conference with Jason Henderson from ODU and the numbers that he's put up, to say that Mike Green may be the front runner, again, that is extreme high praise.
That's what I'm saying. So that kind of blew me back in my chair a little bit. And I'm like, all right, I knew he was good. I just thought he was going to be great for us, not necessarily on a conference-wide scale. I knew he was going to be, he would probably rank amongst the tops in sacks or whatever, tackles for loss or whatever, but not in that short list or that short conversation for potential Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year. That might be exactly what we're staring at here, guys. I mean, it stands to reason. So, I don't know. Russ, let's talk about some strengths or something.
Yeah, let's talk strengths. I've got 4 of them. How many do you have?
I probably 3 because I'm going off the top of my head.
I'll go first then. And I put several E's in here for depth. That is by far my number 1 strength.
It would have to be since I'm going off the top of my head, I'm just going to mirror that because it would have been one of my top strengths. Absolutely, it's depth. You lose 10 pieces. You lost from last year's defensive line. You brought on, I don't know how many. We named off a ton. But
there's more defensive linemen on the roster this year than there was last year. I think there was 16 last year, 20 this year.
But not even knowing how all these guys are going to contribute, even if I only know about 8 to 10 of them, I still think we're unbelievably deep. I just can't accurately convey how confident I am in the depth of this unit. I can keep repeating myself, but I don't feel like it's driving the point home any farther. It's like, damn, man, this is a unit that we haven't seen the likes of depth-wise in a long time. In a long time, and last year included. And they were pretty damn deep last year.
My number 2 is that these guys are absolute animals. I said, I think in 2022, Murderers Row. And now we're talking about Murderers Row for these guys because it's just like that 1927 Yankees team. Who are you going to pitch to? Which one of these guys are you going to double team? I don't know that you can a lot of them, or if you do, you're opening yourself up on the other side.
Well, not only who are you going to pitch to, who are you going to run at? Who are you going to double team? Who are you going to this? Who are you going to that? All right. It seems like the recipe is legitimately pick your poison for every team that's going to face Marshall if their defensive line is at full strength or even at mostly full strength. Yeah, even if you're not digging down into the 4th, 5th, defensive lineman at that point. If your top 4 or 5 guys are healthy, it's a pick your poison scenario. Who are you going to try to double team because you're freeing somebody up? Are you going to double team Mike Green to try to shut him down, and then you see Ishmael or Clayton come off the other edge like unabated, and you can't do anything about it, and they're in the backfield before the snap gets to the quarterback? Or are you going to double team whoever's opposite of Mike Green, and now you've got to deal with what Mike Green can freaking do?
Yeah.
Or are you going to try to do something with both of those guys, and now you've left a very weak interior offensive line to stop Gibby or Legs or Thomas or any of those other guys, because we've seen Gib get to the backfield. We've seen Legs get to the backfield. It's not like they just stop at the line of scrimmage and it's like an invisible fence they won't pass. It's like, come on, man. This defensive line for Marshall, you have to have that attitude. I think to play defensive line, you have to be wired that way. You have to be a little gritty, a little angry. You just have to be that way. I don't really want my defensive lineman putting you on your ass and then helping you up.
Yeah.
I want my defensive lineman putting you on your ass and walking away from you. Like, that's just the kind of vibe that I want from those guys. And I think Marshall's roster's full of those guys, honestly.
Was that your second one as well?
Yeah, as long as yours match mine, I'm just going to there's no sense in talking about them out of order.
Sure. Number 3 for me, and I put even more eyes than I did in the E's for depth, but size. Man, these guys are stacked right across. You look at 352, 324, 327, even 282. You look at the size that Tyquez Legs is, and that's all on the interior. But, you got some 259, 240, 245-pound athletic freaks on the outside. It is just size. None of that what I was talking about before, where we had undersized interior linemen and outside linebackers playing as defensive ends and things like that as far as size goes. This is a very, very large squad.
Yeah, so this is the first place, which I agree with you. Size obviously across the board is an advantage, and it is a strength. It's just not one of mine because I think at this point, I just expect it, right? I expect that that's what our defensive line is going to look like. This is where we differ, and it's speed and athleticism for me, because all things being considered equal, speed is the great equalizer. And I like our chances of Green getting around the edge on an offensive lineman or Clayton getting around the edge on an offensive lineman better than them getting stopped, So I just feel like this is going to be a tremendous problem that offensive coordinators are going to have to try to figure out when they see Marshall is next week. Holy shit, Marshall's next week. They've got an unbelievably fast defensive line. And of course, you've got to talk about linebackers a little bit when you talk about that, because they're going to be coming as well. So you're talking about stopping Green, whoever's opposite Green, and J.C. Anderson, and Jaden Yates, and who else are they sending? Right? Are we coming off of the safety blitz, and now you've got to worry about all those fast edge rushers plus somebody coming from the secondary? It's speed and athleticism. Right, that's what it is. That's my third strength.
Well, and no surprise, my fourth is athleticism, and we've talked about that. You just talked about it. Mike Green, Jacarius Clayton, all these other guys. legs is unbelievably athletic for a man his size. Tremendous footwork and agility. And Gibby, at his size, is an impressive athlete.
Tremendous get off. That's the
Yeah.
thing. It's the first move. It's the get off and the first step. That's tremendous get off for Gibb.
And of course, I could have gone on and said Ralph Street. You could have said that. That's a strength having that guy there. You know, we could have talked about him. We could have talked about other things, but 4 and 3, and you had your 3 was the same as 3 of mine, and you agreed with the other one, but you just kind of put size in there with that athleticism when we're talking about it. Let's talk weaknesses. I have one. Okay. What do you have?
If I gotta pick one, I mean, do I have to pick one? Because it's unfair to say there are no weaknesses, because there are. But at some point, it has to come together. So the overall amount that, now granted, there are a lot of pieces returning, Gibb returning, legs returning, right? Green returning. There's a lot of new also. So individually, these guys might be great players. We know some of them have played together and played together well, but it's how quickly can you put that defensive line in harmony. So no matter what combination of 3, 4, or maybe even sometimes 5 guys that you have on there together, how much do they trust the man to their left and their right to do their job so that they can individually effectively do their own job? So if I had one weakness to try to pluck out of thin air, it would be the chemistry early in the season. That will probably absolutely disappear by week 4.
All right. I came up with one, and it's that only a handful of them can play at a time. That's my weakness. You know, you've got all these pieces. You've got all these cars in the garage, and you can only put 4 of them out there at a time. And, you know, you're going to have some of these guys that just absolute animals that are going to be on the bench. And sometimes it's going to be your starters. And that is why I put them on here, is we are so deep and you can only play 4 of them at a time.
So you can turn that right around and make that a positive, because now you're talking about all these animals that stay fresh. Fresh motor, fresh legs, like good luck.
They stay fresh, but you know, a lot of these guys competitively might want to be out there the majority of the game. That's the only real weakness in what I think is our strongest position group, is that you can only play 4 of them at a time.
Yeah.
I've got some questions, as you know, hardest to replace.
I got to go with Owen Porter. But like I said, he and Sam Burton almost mirror images statistically. But the fan base just rallied around Owen Porter.
I think
they listened when he talked. Do you know what I mean? Like, he went to the freaking press conference and said, "We don't want you here if you're going to boo us." And fans listened to that.
Yeah.
Like, people didn't go, "Oh, well, I'm done with Owen Porter."
Yeah.
They didn't get offended and
go tell him
offended.
that.
Yeah, well, but they didn't. A, they ain't going to. But right. B, people didn't go, "Well, forget him. I'm not going to I won't be back." They checked themselves to a degree. Some did.
Yeah.
And they showed back up to games like with a slightly different mindset. They weren't as quick to boo, right? So aside from the talent on the field, aside from the fact that the guy's an NFL caliber player, he was a player that the team listened to, that the fans listened to, the local legends, like, he's all of it, the whole story, man. 55 is the hardest to replace, hands down.
Yeah, and there's some others. You mentioned Burton, and then, of course, you know, a couple of transfers there that you've talked about in other position group breakdowns as well. You know, we were losing that guy because he exhausted his eligibility, so I'm going with this guy because we could have kept him here. But it is just so hard to replace Owen Porter. I'm in agreement with you. Talk about a motor. But, I mean, it's just everything about the guy. You talk all the time about the celebration. You talk all of the time about the throwback, the look. But, yes, the team basically had him as their defensive captain is the way I look at it. So that is a hard person to replace. Who are you most excited to see this year?
Mike freaking Green, baby. I don't know what they call him, but let's just call him Mike freaking Green because he's the freak, man. He's on the freak list. I think he is a athletic freak. So cut it loose, man. Let me see it all come together for Mike Green. Let me see the birth of the next all-time great edge rusher for the Marshall University Thundering Herd.
So while I am with you in agreement, I decided that I was going to have to pick someone else because of the answers that I have coming up. I am most excited to see Jacarius Clayton, a guy that was such a talented, athletic person that they said, why don't we make him into a tight end? You know, in the SEC. We're not talking about in high school. We're talking about in the SEC, going up against SEC linebackers and safeties and saying, why don't we make this man a tight end? You know, I'm excited to see that.
Dude, you ain't wrong. It's like you ain't wrong.
I'm excited to see Mike Green, and I should say Mike Green because I am most excited to see him, but I can't just say, well, hey, we're going to talk about everything. This is the Mike Green show. So
I don't give a shit. It is the Mike Green show for me because
I know
I got a little drink of what I saw last year was just a sip, right? Mm-hmm. And I want the whole keg this year because it was awesome to watch, like to see in real time the light bulb come on and that dude just kind of take over later in the season, come into his own. It was like, holy crap, man, this is going to be fun to watch in 2024. And now here we are less than 2 weeks away from getting to see its first display of the season.
All right, so who do you have for breakout?
I think the breakout player is, I'm not going to go with Mike Green, shockingly, although I think he will. I think he's going to be on that Sun Belt Defensive Player of the Year list, but I saw a little bit of it last year. So for me personally, he ain't breaking out all the way because I saw the potential for greatness there. This is where I'm going to go with Clayton because I didn't see any of it last year, and now I might see it all in one fell swoop in 2024. So I think Clayton will be my breakout player because I've already seen Mike Green break out to a little bit already.
I can't be on 2 to 3 different shows that invite me on and
do whatever I want, man.
And say that Mike Green is the possible breakout player of the entire roster. And I can't say on my own show that, you know, hey, Mike Green's going to possibly be the breakout guy and not list him as my breakout for the position group that he's in. I'm saying that his 43 tackles, his 4.5 sacks, his 9 tackles for loss, all that stuff that he did coming on late in the year as he got more comfortable and just really turning it on. I get what you're saying where you say, I already saw that, but I'm saying that those numbers are going to pale in comparison to what he does. Even if he doesn't put up the 10 plus sacks or whatever, it's the attention that he's going to get that's going to make everyone else better, that everyone will see, well, hell, that was because of Mike Green right there. And that's why I'm going breakout with Mike Green, is because we're about to see a phenomenal year. Book it, write it down. I'm going Mike Green, breakout player of the year.
So, okay, let me respond to that. Number one, you can do whatever the hell you want to do on your own show, right?
No bosses.
Number two, I don't care that I picked Mike Green on other shows. The G5 High doesn't mean my feelings have changed, right? Yeah. I still expect him to break out. It's just like there are some other guys that I haven't seen.
Sure.
Right. So any type of breakout is a breakout. I think Mike Green's going to be, you know, like potentially like a 70 tackle guy. You know what I'm like? You never know, dude. This guy could be a 60 tackle guy with a 10, 12 sack performance this year and 20 tackles. Who knows, man? Who knows? He could be an absolute wrecking ball freak show on this defensive line for the Herd. But he can't do it alone. And I am so freaking intrigued to see who's going to line up opposite of him, right? Because that guy's either going to rack stats also, or he's going to suck up all of the extra attention, and Mike Green is going to rack the stats up.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's one of them things, but give me Clayton for now. That could change tomorrow.
When all the dust is settled, who do you have as MVP?
Mike Green.
Mike Green here too. I think that we have wrapped this up very nice with a little bow. With one final question, we will have the dot on the center of that bow. Did the position get better in 2024?
Resounding yes.
Same.
Resounding yes. As
Same.
freaking scary as that sounds, losing all those players, two all-time greats off the edge, an NFL guy, other guys out of the portal, youngsters that we were expecting to come in and contribute to a certain degree also hit the portal. They went out, attacked the portal, attacked the high school ranks for some developmental guys, and got better. This is the #1 overall unit in the Sun Belt by field steal for a freaking reason. It's because they're deep, they're scary, and they're freaking good. They got better over 2023.
A resounding yes for me as well. I agree with you. KD, that wraps up an amazing look at the breakdown of the defensive line. We're going to continue next week when we have the quarterbacks, and that will be our final position group.
Oh, hell yeah.
And I just want to say for one final thing as a transition here that on Thursday, we had We Are Marshall showing in the Joan. On Friday, we had the pep rally downtown with all the athletic squads. Saturday night, we had the reverse raffle at the arena. And we had 3 fan-first events, women's soccer, men's soccer, and volleyball. The kickoff has been here for the fall sports. The athletic season is now in full swing. So with that, I say we are going to take you around the herd. All right, so we're going to start off with men's soccer, and this has been a while now, but they downed #2 Notre Dame in an exhibition at Notre Dame 3-1 in a pretty resounding victory that they did. They also beat Northern Illinois, and that was they didn't have a goals that we scored. Northern Illinois scored 1 in the first half, and then they basically, their coach, in the only notes that you can find online, said you could see why they were a #8 team in the nation in the second half. So I'm assuming it was 3 to 4 goals that we put up on them. We beat Winthrop 4-0 on Saturday. That was a fans' first match. It was not a regular season. That is later on this week.
Oh, okay.
But we beat them 4-0. 3 goals by us and 1 by Winthrop themselves.
See, we're so damn good. Other teams want to play for us too, man.
In a very, very rain-shortened game, rain and lightning. There were several different delays and everything, and finally they just ran the clock out and said, "This game's over. This match." They will have their first game. It's this Thursday, August the 22nd, versus Cal State Fullerton at the Vet. 7:15 p.m. We are going to have tickets. We will get with you online and give those away.
Yep.
Women's soccer, they had exhibitions earlier at Delaware and Drexel. Again, not a whole lot online about these, especially when they're away exhibition matches. It seems like score is kept, but it's also kept out of the news. They started their season with a 1-1 tie against Moorhead, and Friday, August 23rd, they will be at Dartmouth at 5 p.m. And then Monday, August 22nd, or 6th, I'm sorry, they will be at Harvard at 6 p.m. So we have, let's see, women's basketball. Their conference schedule is released. We're not going to go over and show you every single game that they are playing in conference. It's on Herd Zone. Give it a look and you can see, but some exciting news about out of conference. They will be in the Disney World multi-team event on November 21st and November 23rd. And that is the inaugural Disney World multi-team event. And right now they're over in Italy. And as you saw, Christian Spears said, hey, we just scored 113 in a game. We're talking about a team that everyone thought was, hey, it's not going to be a Coach Kim style. It's going to be this slow them down, not let anybody score more than 38 to 50 points, in that range, defensive stalwarts, and we put up 113 in international play. That's got to be pretty exciting to think about.
Well, first of all, I know you didn't mean this as a slight, so I'm going to say that right out of the gate. This is not a Coach Kim style. This is a Coach Fulks style, right?
Sure.
And I know you didn't mean that the way anybody might perceive it, but it was exciting basketball last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Obviously it was. It captivated the damn region. It captivated the state. It captivated the University of Tennessee, obviously. So the big question was, well, what the hell are we going to do? Because fans are now jonesing for that type of basketball from the women's program, and they go out and hire Julie Fulks, and we were like, well, it's supposed to be similar. Will it be similar? Yeah, 113 points. I think so, right? So this is very much I don't want to say more of the same, but it's more of the same. You're expecting up and down the court, lots of points scored, which is things we've alluded to in the past. But I don't know. I think this is going to be a really, really, really good women's basketball team, and I hope that a lot of the conference mates are going, they won't repeat. They won't be any good. They lost everything, and we lost to Abby Beeman. We lost Brianna Campbell. Like, we lost some players, dude. Lots of players. But we also went out and got some players, and we also kept some players, right? So
key pieces.
So I know you didn't mean it that way, but I just think I love what Coach Kim did for Marshall basketball. I love it, and I'll be appreciative of it until I take my last breath. But I'm fully behind Coach Julie Fulks, and I'm fully behind,
man. Yeah.
And I want other people to realize that, like, just get behind what she's doing. It will be similar. But this is not a Coach Kim style. This is Coach Julie Fulks' team.
That's right.
This is her program, and we're going to win some damn games. I am really kind of disappointed that they decided to go to Orlando, Florida, as soon as I decided to leave the state of Florida.
I think that was in the press release, was one of the reasons
Christian
why.
did that shit on purpose is really what happened. He was like, you know what? That fool was down there for 7 years. But they went, no, wait, they were at, where'd they go? USF or something? I thought we had that was a track meet maybe, and I couldn't get to that. But anyway,
you went to some softball down there.
I did. Yeah, I went. Yeah. That was some tournament up in. It was a small town. It wasn't on a college campus. But anyway, the soccer team, they were just. I was trying to follow along online, like not on ESPN Plus obviously, but like on the Twitter timeline. And it just seemed like they were having no problem with Winthrop, as to be expected.
Yeah.
But
they caused them to score for us.
But you're right. The point I was getting at is we are going to have tickets to the Herd men's soccer season. So be on the lookout for contest tweets and giveaways. Again, I'm going to say this: don't enter our freaking contest if you're not going to go to the damn game. Right? It's really hard to try to track down people every game to give tickets away, and then just to have those people go, oh yeah, thanks, but we're not going to go. Like, I appreciate it, just don't enter the contest if you're not going to go.
Yeah,
because the whole point for doing this is to get asses in seats and go to the game. So
no, key point for me again about the women's basketball comment was that us, not me and you, but Marshall was like, well, this is going to be different, and we're not going to score 113 points. But yet, here we are.
Here we are.
All right. For men's basketball, their complete schedule is released, and it does include and confirm that WKU matchup on November the 30th that we had reported before. And there are lots of cool matchups and games and out-of-conference things, and all that's on Herd Zone. You can get over there and look that up and make your plans to get season tickets for women's basketball and men's basketball. It's an exciting time for both.
Yep, sure is.
Volleyball, they had their green and white scrimmage, and of course, Marshall won. They always do. But they are kicking off their fall season here. Saturday, August 24th versus St. Francis. Get on over to the Cam and support your volleyball girls. Tickets are very cheap. It's a fun time, man. It is great to take the entire family. Get over and watch us get off to a great win against St. Francis.
Yeah, so here's the thing. It is it's very exciting to go to a volleyball match. It's really, really cheap fun also to take the entire family. Entire family. So if you're like bored or whatever, like, dude, go to the volleyball match. I went to one, remember that last year I was in, and it was Virginia Tech game weekend, and I hit it all. I did volleyball and football and men's soccer and women's soccer, and even a little softball scrimmage, I think, was going on. So that was my first volleyball match in a long, long, long time. Coach Ari and that team, it's a lot of fun. Also, I want to direct you over to like the Herd Volleyball, like Instagram and their Twitter accounts, because they've been showcasing several new members of the Herd this year. So you can familiarize yourself with newcomers to the Herd volleyball team, along with some of the greats that we know, like Bryn Brown, right, who are still on the roster. So I implore you, please get out to at least one Herd volleyball match at the Cam. They are a lot of fun. They're chock full of energy, and it's super cheap. Dude, I think you can get season tickets if you wanted to for like $25.
Yeah.
I mean, it is so cheap.
It starts at $25. Yeah. And you can get courtside for $50. Of course, I think that's a family 4-pack. It's $200 total. But
I thought it was $200 like per ticket.
No, if you go on and click the links and everything, it actually has $50 on there.
Wow!
But I think you have to get a minimum of 4, is why there's a discrepancy between the 50 and the 200. But anyway, pretty cheap to sit courtside, and again, a great time. I'm going to wrap us up with this for Around the Herd Zone Plus. We had talked about it, a month or so ago. There is now the second episode out, and it was on the defensive line. I've watched the first 2. It's a really good insight. Rodney and Stan and the entire team just knock it out of the park with this. But there's also a couple of the, at least one of the athletes doing the podcast where they're interviewing each other. Oh, is that
Olivia
Fogo and Meredith Mayer? That episode is up. And they've got the spot there for Coach's Corner. I know that one's going to be uploaded fairly soon. They're staggering everything. But, again, you can get this for $9.99, and there's going to be some people out there comparing it to Netflix or Disney Plus or whatever. This money is supporting your athletic programs, and it's still content that we want to watch. And no one is saying that all coaches' shows are going to be on there, because they're not. They're not hiding content from you now. This is just additional things that you were not getting before. Okay, so I've heard some people out there. I just want to clarify for anybody that might be confused. They're not putting things behind a paywall now that used to be free. That's totally false. Everything that used to be free is still going to be free. These are just new content, things that they have not done before that are going to be on there, and the money goes back to these athletes that are so dear to our hearts, and this school that is so dear to our hearts.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you're supporting the Herd. You're not supporting the media conglomerate, like whatever. If it's worth it to you, you'll subscribe. If it's not, you won't. It's whatever. But there's no need to like shit on it. If you don't want to subscribe, then don't. If you want to, then do. But I commend Marshall for trying to get more content to the Herd fans that want it. For how many years have we been starved for content? Like, there just wasn't enough out there, and now I know we're a small part of that. We are providing content to Herd fans. There are other outlets that are trying to provide content to Herd fans, and not everything can be free, right? But if it's worth it to you, you'll pay for it. If it's not worth it to you, you won't. But just don't gripe about it that it costs money, because it costs money to produce these things. It costs money to build an infrastructure to put these things in place for you. Even our show's not free. It costs us money, but it's through gracious sponsors that we are able to keep it free, right? So that's just the nature of the beast. You got anything else?
No, I was just going to say, with Herd Zone Plus, they actually have full games on there for various different sports. But I have not clicked on those yet. So I can't report back on any of these, but there's soccer, there's basketball, there's football, there's several different things on there. I'm just telling you, if you do have it, you're already subscribed, there is additional content that they have added. You need to just be checking in there every week to see what's in.
Okay, so if they start putting on some 90s era herd football games, I think their sponsor or their subscriber base will probably shoot through the moon.
Well, that's been
Just
talked
saying.
about. That's been
Just
talked
saying.
about. But right now, everything is 2020 and newer that is on there.
I mean, nothing wrong with that, but you give me the heyday, you give people access to full games of late 90s, early 2000s MAC era herd football and some Southern Conference era stuff. I think you'll start seeing some subscriber base go up a little bit.
I have had that conversation with some key individuals, and I cannot promise anything, but it looks very solid that there may be a rotation of some of these all-time games that are not
Absolutely.
just that they will keep in the rotation, and due to bandwidth and storage and all that stuff, and also just the nature of having new subscribers every now and then, and the current subscribers saying, hey, I want more. I've seen those games. I want something else. That they'll rotate in and off some of these major games from over the years. But that's all I've got for Around the Herd.
All right. Well, man, incredibly awesome breakdown. It's great to actually have some stuff about herd teams to talk about in Around the Herd again. But look, it's been a long episode, an hour and 40-some minutes. Holy hell. Way to come back to the fold, KD, and keep everybody listening for almost 2 freaking hours. But let's go ahead and take us out of here. Just take us out of here.
Yeah, whether you see us at the Jack, whether you see us at the Joan, or whether you see us in a 2-bedroom hotel in Nashville and still podcasting, no matter where you see us, we're going to be saying, go Herd.
Go Herd. It's the ThunderCast. We'll see you next week, or maybe later this week. We got a quarterback breakdown to do. We got season predictions to do, and then coming up real fast, we've got a week 1 preview to do. So we'll see you when we see you. Later.